Bring that for us, Richard. Probably trying to get out of the way here because Gricey's ready to roll.
Well, I've set the clock on that, 30 seconds. Good, slick stop. 16 rejoins in 6th position. Meanwhile, Wayne Gardner struggling to get his belts on. Graham Moore giving him some last-minute instructions.
Well, if he thought this was a handful in qualifying in the dry, he's in for the ride of his life now.
I've just been advised that Colin Bond is out there and circulating, but he reports no oil pressure at this stage.
Well, he's not going to be out there long then, Doug.
It's going to cause him some problems. It's finished.
I'd say our race leader, who's allowed that to happen, Mark Scaife, is already undoing the belts, getting ready for Jim Richards. And he is now headed to the pits. What a combo, the 4-wheel drive and the best rain driver in Australia to take over from you, Jimmy Richards.
And of course the big advantage for the Nissans too, if the pace really backs off, they may be able to get down to 1 pad change as opposed to the 2 they were suspecting to do in the hot conditions. So they'll pick up even more time if that's the case.
Let's go down to John Brady for this Prima Holidays pit report.
Yes, thanks, Mike. A little bit of timing for the Nissans. What they've done is they've tried to hold off onto the slicks as long as possible. It's not that far away from when they would have done a tank change and a driver change anyway. So they've decided to go to the wet weather tyres now. They've already made a big dent on everybody else. And Jimmy Richards, as you say, you couldn't get a better man to be handling the wet. And you couldn't really have a much better stock than this one's looming up for them so far. Just waiting for the churn to go in. The car seems ready as soon as the petrol drops. And when the crew's ahead of the petrol tank, that's as good as you can ask it to do. Coming up to 29 seconds now, and they're about to fly. It's pretty good for a driver change and a full set of tyres. 34 seconds, and off goes Jimmy Richards.
Oh, how hot is the Winfield Team Nissan? The Mobile One Commodore comes in for a pit stop.
And
I don't think Ford's going for a ride.
Graham Brown, Brock's team manager, in there trying to spray the demister. The no fog on the inside of the screen. They're all suffering the same problem. If you haven't got enough to contend with out there on a big greasy track, if you can't see where you're going, it's almost an impossible task.
Water outside the windscreen and on the inside. Look at that, you can see that. That must be very distracting in these conditions.
When you get that greasy film build up on the inside, you can Andrew screaming at them to get some more of it off. So the rain has turned this race upside down. Andrew Madecki doesn't do a lot of motor racing these days. He's a guy who does do a lot of motorsport. Glad to see him having a drink on the bottle.
It's morning tea time.
And this guy just looks so relaxed behind the wheel of a racing car. It's almost beyond belief.
He's carrying our Castrol race cam for us today in the Falcon EB, running 9th on the road at the moment. And he'll hand over to another guy who's used to the wet too, and Alan Jones. He honestly looks like about a 14 or a 15-year-old, doesn't he, Glenn?
Especially with the tube in his mouth taking liquid refreshments.
Anders Olofsson coming into the pits.
Neil Crompton waiting to get into the car. We've got the stopwatch going on this change.
Down to you, John.
Yes, thanks very much, Mike. As we pointed out earlier, this is roughly when Nissan were going to change anyway. It just couldn't have happened better for them. They've managed to stay out on the slicks. Now they'll go to the wets. That'll make them even more dominant. And all this at a time when they were ready to go anyway. Another driver change. Again, they're just so spot on with this crew. Again, the thing I'm waiting for is the petrol. The driver change will be a spot on. This only running about 24 seconds now, and they'll be off 30 seconds to get the driver in, change the tyres, on schedule anyway. They don't even know it.
No, you're right there, John. 16, Alan Grace, the Holden Racing Team Commodore. Car number 2 rejoining in 3rd place. Gracie goes down pit into left-hander, locking.
There's an indication of just how slippery out there. Rice going walking on as if to turn to help on. This is very tricky stuff.
Well, we have all ingredients of a fascinating race at Map Panorama today. Don't know the weather, in fact, clear. May. We have fog at the top of the mountain. Larry Perkins, who's been running the top 6 all morning, brings his number 11 Bob GTR Commodore into the pits to hand over.
Coming in for a full set of smoke.
Yeah, I was going to say, Doug, see the aquaplaning, the tyre locking up. It's even coming at that slow speed into pit straight. Meanwhile, John Bow at the wheel of car 17. If you ever want to drive a handful around Mount Panorama, I reckon this will be the car. Sierras have never been renowned for their instant throttle response.
Like arm wrestling with a gorilla.
Well, info from the Larry Perkins pits. The tyres were absolutely useless when Larry came in for the pit stop. Right down, the right rear was down to the canvas.
Alan Grice, 1 minute 15. He's been in there for a long, long time. And most of the attention seems to be centering on the windscreen.
Now here's an interesting fact that's just come to hand. Just put the clock on Jim Richards, who's now out there on full wet tyres. He's going around at 2:41.6, which is 8 seconds slower than Skate was doing on the dry tyres, on the slicks.
It's not bad. Richard Hayes down in the pits. Richie?
Thanks, Mike. Huge problems for Alan Grice. Something as simple as a windscreen wiper, but he can't obviously see through the screen. It's not working properly, and the wiper is actually sliding off the edge of the screen. The problem is that they can't actually get the spanner down to tighten the thing up behind the bonnet line. And the car's been stuck in the pits now for around about 2 minutes. Also problems on the inside of the screen with misting up.
That's the Denny Holm car, co-driving that with Paul Morris. Now they've got a rescue vehicle out there as well.
And yet the driver's standing there, isn't he? That's
Apparently has hit the wall hard there.
Alan
And I would
Grice.
think in the interest of the race, maybe the pace car might even be brought out.
Well, the pace car is just moving up pit lane now. We're going to have the pace car out the track. Alan Grice rejoins in 11th position.
I'm quite surprised. I thought they may have brought the pace car out even earlier today for the Brock car on the edge of the racetrack, but there's not much they can do here.
Well, we're certainly starting to get a bit of wreckage on the side of the track, and with the slippery conditions, there's even greater danger of one of these cars sliding off and hitting the other car. So it's a mandatory safety measure by the organisers here. So the pace car on the track at the moment.
Denny Holm was at the wheel of this car. I'm certain they didn't do a driver change when they came in before for the tyres. Paul Morris, the scheduled co-driver.
That's shots from our chopper cam, just hovering. Tony
they've
Longhurst
got a
in
neck
the
brace on him. I just saw a neck brace on
I saw
Denny.
that too, Doug. That driver seems to be in some distress.
pace car still out here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. The ambulance has arrived on the scene. We believe Denny Holm is unconscious, about to be extricated from that car and taken down to the medical centre. Let's take a look at an incident we have here and see exactly what happened. Most of our cameras all ISO. This looks like Denny Holm coming down. He's got a wheel out on the grass.
He's aquaplaned, you see, in the wet.
He's offline and
He's clouded the wall
Now
there, and it's brought him across the racetrack.
Now that doesn't look that dramatic, but you see what's happened is he's flicked his head sideways. You've got that support behind your head, but you haven't got the lateral support, and it's obviously damaged his neck in some way.
And there is Denny pulling the car up. There's the ambulance moving down Conrod Straight to Caltex Chase. Then take Denny into the medical centre, as I said here, which is located near the pits. Old pace car heads to the pits, and the great race resumes with Jimmy Richards, car number 1, the Winfield Nissan.
the Rainmaster aboard the car, renowned as the Rainmaster.
And isn't that a bonus? He's at least going to get a few laps without any cars in front of him now, so he's not going to have to worry about any of that. And just look at him take off the four-wheel drive Nissan GTR.
Bye-bye. He's just spread eagle the middle of pit straight. He's pulled 100, 200 metres on them already.
Dillman Cotter, Impala Kitchen's car going through. It's down a lap. And that will give you some idea of the advantages of a four-wheel drive touring car in the wet.
Look at the rain. Just enormous plumes of spray coming out as we say that. Steve Harrington.
Larry
limping.
Perkins coming in very slowly.
Steve Harrington at the wheel, limping into pit lane. And this will be one of the most unexpected failures